Okay. This is the City of Maplewood Heritage Preservation Commission, Thursday, October 10th, 2024, at 7 p.m. And I'd like to call our meeting to order. And first, a roll call. Laura Koski.
Present.
Okay. And David Hughes.
Here.
And John
Here.
Gasper.
Here.
Richard Curry.
Here.
Pete Boulay.
Here.
And Bob Cardinal. Hey, we have a full commission tonight. Okay, everybody have a copy of the agenda? Everyone? Any changes or additions? Corrections? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the
Okay,
agenda.
John makes a motion and second by Laura. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, move on to the minutes.
Do you have any? Yes, you're in your packet.
No, they're in the second page of the pack. Hang on, I can pull up. If you don't have them, I'll pull them up.
Any changes or addition to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. And now we are going to do new business, Preserve Minnesota review. How do you want to handle this, Joe?
Okay, so I believe we had 3 members of our commission who went to the Preserve Minnesota Conference, which was held in Red Wing toward the end of September. It's the annual conference that's put on by the State Historic Preservation Office. It's a 2-day conference, and I believe Commissioner Hughes had indicated he wanted to review a couple of learning lessons that he went to, and I believe also Commissioner Gaspar had been at that conference. So if you want to add something as well, and then Commissioner Koski, I think you were going, did you? No? Okay. So if you want to kick it off, Commissioner Hughes, and then John, if you want to fill in.
Feel free to chime in. As you can see, we have our lovely shirts. It's always great to go to these conferences because there is so much positive energy going on at them. And Red Wing was really quite the place to go. There are so many spectacular old buildings there. I just kind of want to share a couple of the workshops that I went to because they were very interesting and they might be something that we could pick up something from. One of the big questions was asked, and I went to one called Main Street, and Main Street looks for a group of buildings they can put together, and they call it their Main Street, and this entire organization is based around helping you develop and market your Main Street. I asked a question towards the end of that, and I said, well, what if we have a split-up business district, but we have some structures that are worth possibly working with? And they said that's something that if we contacted them, they may be able to help us with. One of the things is old versus actual historical. And if you look on page 2, we look at some of on this handout, which Joe was nice enough to provide for us today. There are a couple of buildings on here potentially that we're missing that might be something that we could look at as far as maybe not getting them on a national registry, but at least recognizing them. One that came to my mind while I was sitting there is the building that the original Gladstone window store was in, which is right behind the old funeral home that was just torn down. Now, if you look at that, it's a very old building, for one. There's not much there, but when you think of the success that this company has had, and that's where they started, and they started there around the same time that Maplewood became a city. 1961, I believe, is what the little bio says. That building, if we can find we do have some historical significance to it, but if the building's got anything architecturally special about it, maybe that's a building we at least look at, get pictures of. It's straight behind, I haven't been over there for a while, so I couldn't tell you what color it is now or it's even been painted. But I remember going in there and buying windows in that just before they moved it. And, yeah, the old Gladstone window store, which was originally a lumberyard. So maybe that's a building we take a look at. It's got some significance to it. I know at times we had talked about the KSTP building, which is really unique. Maybe we need to talk to the Hubbards and see if that's something that they want recognized at some point. That's Art Deco, and there's very few buildings like that around here. And so we talked the last time, I think, or I did, about potentially a couple of the buildings down in what I call downtown, which is Gladstone, because it's the closest thing we've got to downtown. And there's a couple of old shops down there that maybe they've got some significance. Maybe we need to do some research into that. These are just some things that kind of popped into my head when I was sitting there trying to tie what they were saying to what we could potentially recognize. So, you guys, most of you have lived here your whole life, right? 3 of you, right? I know you 2 have. Like, you're older than the city. I'm the same age as the city, and you guys are unfortunately older than I am. So you have, a lot of personal history with this also.
When I first got on this commission, the Gladstone Street there from, English, just before English, all the way almost to Hazelwood, that's what we were considering the historic district. And if you look at some of the records, you'll see the historic district. We try to set it.
Right, and that is probably as close as we've got.
And I'm glad you see that now, because this is what I've been talking almost like your shirt to you guys.
So,
That's correct,
yeah,
The building that had, right before they moved, they tore that down. It was in that empty lot just to the north of this. This used to be the video den.
Okay.
No, it was a video store. It's a church of some kind, I think. But yeah, the Gladstone Lumberyard is just to the north, and I don't know if there's anything left of it. Is there?
But is it over here?
No, he's going the right way now.
What I'm getting at is
so it's
over that way.
it's the
was
fenced area.
where Mike's LP gas, or the LP gas was over there.
Oh,
So the LP gas is on the opposite side. This property we're looking at right now, I believe, is owned by the county.
oh,
It has a special use for, I believe, overflow, is what I was told. This parcel came up as part of the conversation when they wanted to build Gladstone Village 2, which is the J.B. Vang property. So Legacy Funeral Home had gotten demolished. They're going to put up Gladstone Village Phase 1, and then Gladstone Phase Village 2 is going to go right there. But we were considering this parcel for some overflow parking, but the county said they need it for other uses. Just from some history, some current background on what's going on over there.
Okay, another one that, sorry, I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
I might get off a roll.
Sorry.
Another one, and it's at the top of that sheet, is Aldrich Arena. Extremely unique piece of property, building with a great history. I believe, lots of regional hockey tournaments are held there. If I'm not mistaken, at one point, I think the state tournament might have been held there.
The-
So it's got,
Yeah, there was,
The parochial or private schools.
The private schools. Well, that's still a state championship.
They
We'll
had the,
recognize that.
Olympics, or what was it? There was something, ice capades or what have you were up in there too.
I mean, it's in Maplewood. I mean, you know, we don't have that wonderful old 200-year-old brick buildings that Red Wing has. We have, you know,
Mishmash.
we have some houses that are that old, but we don't have a lot of businesses that are that old. But it doesn't mean we can't recognize some of the significant ones that are over 50 years old.
And we're all getting older.
Yeah, one of the things I found most interesting in that particular training was that for every $9 that you put into restoring or keeping an old building, you get $9 for every dollar you put into it. When you do it in the city, it's $15 because it's so much cheaper to rehab and not tear down buildings and reconstruct. I did a virtual walking tour, which was really great. Or I should say, I did a walking tour at the end, but I'll talk about that later. A second one was they had a high school teacher that came up with a virtual tour that you could go around Waseca. So the Historical Society, the city, the school district, they have something called a tourism. They have a tourism group that actually raises money to publicize the city. But anyway, that contributed quite a bit too, and they have this where you can go scan and it tells you the history of the building you're standing in front of. Or if you're incapable of doing that or you don't want to do it, you can do it online too. You can go look at their historical buildings, and the kids in high school are developing backstories for all of these buildings as part of an elective class. So they're getting credit to do it. And he's in his second year now, and they've got like 46 buildings identified with histories, and they're literally rewriting the history of that city and what it's identified with. Okay, and then one more, and then I'll let John have the floor. The last one was, and the last thing I did was to walk around the city of Red Wing with a tour group. They walked us around, they showed us the buildings, they took us in an old building that this young couple had purchased, and they had a store in the storefront, and then they were redoing the upstairs, which is pretty much abandoned, and bringing it up to code. They had this unbelievable old doors and windows. It had 12-foot ceilings. It was just absolutely beautiful. And she walked us in, showed us, told us how much work it was to do it. And then we went around the corner and we looked at what they're doing now is anybody who builds a building downtown has to build the building to match the surrounding area. So this historical section they have, everything has to be so that it looks just like the brick buildings that are there. So we were talking to these people from Red Wing, and the discussion turned to how do they get enough people motivated to do this. They actually had the city of Maplewood, no, not the city of Maplewood, the city of Red Wing, the citizens actually voted a tax on themselves to fix up some of these buildings downtown, including the hotel that we stayed in, which is a magnificent old building, but that was also, St. James was also part of this. And they talked about, they literally have a waiting list of people that want to be on their historical commission. So what they did was you get a 3-year term, and then you have to take a year off, and then you can rerun because they have so many people that want to be on it. They're so excited about being a part of it. And they're constantly bringing in new ideas and new blood. And it just was really kind of exciting to hear them talk about it. And I will yield my time to the gentleman in the other T-shirt.
Thank you, David. John?
Yeah? Okay. I thought it was a well put together place to be, and it was, all the places you went to were with just real close walking distance. The farthest thing away was the shoe company, which was 2.5 blocks. But it was good. I'll just go through what I liked. One was, one of the couple of interesting ones were, I went Wednesday evening to the pottery place, and that was interesting, walking around and looking through the museum there and stuff like that. The other one I went to was the one about the Minnetonka boat. That was really interesting how they went and took this boat out of the water and they fixed it up and they hope that they can get some more money so they could bring passengers around again. That was very interesting. And the Red Wing Shoe Company was very interesting about how they went from this old building with the shoe company and offices in, and they actually went and remodeled the whole thing. And that was very interesting seeing what they did. The one I liked the most was the one about the Minnesota Inventory Portal, which sort of goes back to what we have. I mean, if you go through there, I mean, there's a lot of places in Maplewood that are on there. I don't know, have you put any stuff on there?
Yeah, so the basis of the platform that I pulled together, the GIS that we have, starts with all that SHPO data. So we have all the points that are in the SHPO portal within our geodatabase, and then we've been adding to it with stuff that like Commissioner Hughes has been going through and collecting in from like the 60 stories. So we're adding on to it with things that SHPO doesn't yet have inventoried to add to our internal inventory database. But yeah, there's a lot,
That's
surprisingly,
a lot of
at
information
SHPO.
from all over the place.
Yeah.
I sat there in my computer going through it, and then I went through it a couple days ago, and I forgot all the stuff I learned before. Because I know you could get a lot of more information, but I forgot how to get to that. So I think it'd be a good thing to have at a meeting, someone to show us, let us show us how to actually use the portal to find stuff.
Okay, that's good.
Use the portal to find stuff.
Can I add one thing to John's? He and I both went to the Minnetonka boat, the taxis that they pulled up. And they had 3 historical societies and 2 cities that worked on this collaboratively together. Plus, of course, they had some Minnetonka Lake money in order to work with this. But they kind of split it up so that they were different organizations that were doing different parts of it. And that's kind of the ability of their city people and the historical societies to get along together is the reason this thing happened. So that collaboration back between the 2 groups, I think, is something that we need to do. We need to make peace with the historical society, and we need to start working with them. And one of the ways that's going to happen is while we were in Red Wing, I was nominated to and elected to the board at the Historical Society. So I'm going to be the one that's going to come and bring the message from the Historical Society. And if there's any communication that needs to be done back and forth, I'm going to act as that liaison from this point forward. So I haven't actually been to a board meeting to see exactly what the parameters are going to be on this, but that's my new role.
Well, that's wonderful.
One thing I can suggest, if I ever did it again, I would stay there overnight.
You would?
Yeah. Getting up early, taking a 1-hour drive down there.
So this St. James St. James is supposed to be haunted, and I'll tell you, I woke up at 2 o'clock one morning, and the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. You get that? I think that old lady was in my room.
Okay, good. Good wrap-up there. Did they mention where the event will be held next year?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis?
That's
2 years from now?
The national one will be in Minneapolis in 2 years. I don't remember them saying anything about next year. Maybe there isn't one next year because they're doing it nationally. But we got the flyer, and it's in my stuff. Give me a second. I'm sure the 8 people out there are really upset having to. So it's going to be 2026, July 22nd through the 26th is in Minneapolis. It's the National Forum. The camera's up there. So if you guys want to look at the date. Okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Steve. Okay, it's called NAPC Forum Minneapolis, July 22nd through 26, 2026. Jody, you know what that stands for? NAPC?
National Alliance of Preservation Commissions.
Okay.
I've been actually getting stuff from the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions the last couple of weeks. So I'll loop the team in on it if anything's Maplewood or Minnesota specific.
Okay, so that's good reporting on the Preserve Minnesota review. And number 2, anything else? Anybody, any questions? Okay, we'll move on to number 2, strategic planning. Under that, first bulletin is need commissioner bios. Joe, do you have them all, or no?
I'm missing 2, so I'll connect with it. I think the 2 folks know who they are, so
Okay.
I've been told I'll get something.
Okay. All right, and then we'll move on to the Maplewood, what do we call it? Maplewood Historical Timeline. Right?
Yes. Commissioner Cardinal, Commission. So what has been indicated is that we want to put together, as a commission, some type of timeline that we could display on our website. We were told that the Maplewood Area Historical Society, especially with former President Bob Jensen, had put together a good amount of information on this instead of us, because we don't have the capacity to do this, especially if it's already done. Commissioner Boulay had indicated and sent over the first 2 of 11 pages of a historical timeline. What I would suggest is if we could get the other remaining page, the other 9 pages, my Roman Catholic high school math, the other 9 pages of that, and go through, and instead of us, again, reinventing the wheel, go through and figure out, okay, are there points on the timeline that we could add, or are there things from the timeline that we could augment? So that'd be my suggestion for the historic timeline. If Commissioner Boulay wants to pick up from there.
Yeah.
As you can see, this is the start of the timeline. I didn't put it in your packet only because I got it today, and secondly, I don't want to piecemeal it. I'd rather have all 11 pages, and then I could email it out to everybody.
One thing, this kind of came up before I rejoined the commission, and what I was curious about is what does the commission or the city really want for a timeline? I mean, I mean, 11 pages would be a lot. So, I mean, maybe we could condense it down, and do you want to interact with the click on like a picture of something? I mean, I got more questions than, I wasn't sure what the vision commissioners were thinking.
Since this was a Chair Cardinal initiative, I would leave it to his discretion. I would say the city, as the staffer who's probably going to work on this, give me what you have.
Okay.
I'd rather have more information and cull it down than us miss stuff. So 11 pages, while it might sound unruly, a lot of this stuff we could not skip over, but it doesn't have to be a prime. It doesn't have to be a click on. It could just be a point in the time.
Okay.
So Pete, I was thinking of like a timeline, you know?
Oh, like a left to right
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're starting with 1836 and then move on and Joe's right, we can eliminate quite a bit of it, but I think the high points
Okay.
and
Has anybody, commissioners, worked on a timeline before I go too deep into it? Or,
Oh,
I mean,
I
I know
think-
we've done this before too. Bob's done it, and then there's other ones.
I think you should have Bob, you know, kind of
And-
help us on that. He's
Well-
done that.
We'll talk.
Also, too, here's the other piece of this, especially now that Commissioner Hughes had indicated sort of more of a cooperative, hopefully more of a cooperative relationship between us and the Historical Society. There really is, I mean, there are a couple of places we could stick this on the city's webpage, but this is more the domain of the Historical Society. I'm happy to work with whatever staff over there is to do it and to kind of cull the stories down. But I believe this is something that should live on their website, not the city's.
Oh, okay.
If they have an appetite to do that. If they don't, then we could figure it out from there.
One, one comment, and something I've talked to people at the Historical Museum about is there's a whole lot that happened before 1836, and we're not acknowledging it. When I used to teach a unit about glaciers, the area that we're sitting in was created by the glaciers. The Great River Warren was, its ending point was the St. Anthony Falls. So everything that's below this, including us, is part of this. I mean, that's why we find such rare deposits in places when people are digging up buildings. There's so much old history buried underneath there, and I think we need to go back a little bit deeper. And I think that's something that, you know, can be worked on from there. I know like I said, I had a unit, and I left it with somebody. I wish I had it because it's a whole history of, I know the spot that I live on is an old slag pile that was dumped on from Phelan Creek, that backup, that whole thing. And I easily confirmed it the day I tried to drill fence posts because I was bringing up rocks that were, you know, a couple of feet in diameter that I couldn't get up with that drill. And there's a lot of gravel underneath where I live. So that is definitely, it's an old riverbed. So that's something we're missing. That was something I think would go great on top of this. But yeah, 9 pages or 19? I mean.
11, I think. Did he-
11? 11
You can
pages.
see there, there's several mentions here. Did anybody see the paper yesterday about 3M Scotch tape as the kind of the product of manufacturing in Minnesota? Everybody see that? Anybody see that?
I didn't
Yeah,
see it.
it was picked as our top
Oh, really?
contribution.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
And that date on it was 1961 when that was invented.
Okay.
3M. So, I
Well,
mean,
3M should be part of it for sure.
Yeah, well, we did, Bob, you and I did that one that did the Post-it notes.
yeah, that's right. So, okay, so Peter, you going to work with Bob Jensen on that?
Well, I'll see what, I'm also gonna, this rings a bell too for other things, and I'm gonna see what else we got too. I mean, this has been brought up a few times, so we'll see what we got. We'll work on it.
Make it definitive and be right up to date with Scotch tape on.
Yeah, there you go.
1961.
I
Laura?
wonder if it's an option too, because there's the graphic timeline that goes on the webpage, but also maybe keeping the comprehensive timeline and cleaning it up in a nice document and having it like a downloadable PDF. So those who
okay.
want the finer detail can still download it, but it's not what's on the webpage and being an overwhelming
Yeah.
block of text.
Something else to think about. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, having taken kids to state and national history day, I will tell you that people will not stand in front of something and read more than this. And our generation has longer attention spans than the generations that are coming after us. So if we're going to do this, it needs to be little blurbs, and I agree. A document, or maybe a document that you can click on that event and get more information from it, so that we're not asking people to stand in front of something and read a book, because they just won't do it. You know, you don't go to the State Historical Society and read the book with the pictures that's stuck to the wall. They won't spend more than 3 or 4 minutes in front of any display.
To add to you're talking about the timeline before where we started 1836 here. I mean, it's just interesting. It starts with they go to Savage Lake to visit the Dakota Indians. We're already there in 1836. But I have some resources that I can send to help extend that timeline pre-1836.
That's great.
Send me an email.
That's good. Okay, anything more on the timeline? Anyone? I think that can be a working document, and I think that can generate some history and residents recognizing that Maplewood has some of our own history, and that'd be good to publish that. Okay, moving on to the third bullet, Poor Farm Cemetery as a heritage site.
There's actually one more before that. Identify historic locations, which is a little different. This was from Commissioner Chair Cardinal.
Okay, yeah.
You had asked in an email when I sent out the agenda last week to give us the targeted identified potential historic sites. That's that piece I just put on all of your desks. I didn't put it in the packet just because I was still in the process of working on it. I made a compromise here with Commissioner Kerry. He was trying to get us to print out the entire 2014 historic context study. I pulled out a brief summary of what I thought was sort of the most critical. If you want to dig in further, it's digitally available on our commission's website. But this is if we want to continue to look at his locations or properties for historic commemoration or historic nature, this is the list that was designated. So you can see here, it's broken down here by, public ownership, nonprofit, churches, cemeteries, private. And this is the list we've been working off of the last 4 or 5 years since I've been the liaison of this commission. So, and I don't want to really dig into all of it right now, but maybe over the course of the next couple of meetings, we could look through it, and again, with the institutional knowledge that's on this commission, if there's anything that raises a flag and we should look into it further, especially when you read the entire historic context study, maybe it gives us some more ideas. Like I said, a couple of these things we looked at, and for full on, there's just not a lot left. When I say not a lot left, I mean the original locations have been altered. So as far as the full designation, we probably wouldn't get it because of how many alterations that have happened. And then the other piece of it is, again, while the building is old, has anything historic actually happened there, or is it the last of its kind, or those kinds of things? So I think, again, while it's a robust list, once you kind of dig past the surface, it starts to fall apart. Probably not the best phrase, but it's not as strong as an entry that it initially looks like.
Well, this is very helpful, Joe. This is good to recognize, and then you can hone this down too. So, any questions on the historical sites?
Yeah, to help give us some framework to work off of for when we come back to this. I think I handed you, there was like a local heritage preservation form that someone had given me at some point on this.
That was probably me.
Okay.
When that big notebook that I tried to get Bruce or Joe to kind of push a little bit, I probably pulled it out of something out of that.
Okay.
There is the form that I could share with the group that it gets into. Okay, here's the checklist.
Yeah, here's what we're looking for.
Here's what we're
Yeah.
not we, but here's what the
what the commission's
here's what the
trying
here's
to
what
work
the
off of.
SHPO is looking for when it comes to designating properties.
Yeah.
So I could put that out so it gives you some context of what's here.
Yeah, because that would help give us the framework we're going for the local designation. Because I don't think that we can do National Register for a lot of these. That would require a lot more integrity than a lot of the buildings in the city have. Like a lot of the facades have already been redone. But if we can do local designation for sure, and that requires a lot less review, and it also doesn't keep landowners from being able to do stuff with the property. National Register, you have to get permission from landowners. And that requires a lot of restrictions from them to be able to do things with their houses or with their structures. So I think if we can work off the local designation form for whatever the one existing for Maplewood already is, that gives us the framework we're working in of what we're looking for.
Okay, good. Thanks, Laura. Okay, now we can move on to Poor Farm Cemetery.
Okay, Commissioner Boulay had pulled this up the last time. He had done some work with former liaison Virginia Gaynor about the cemetery itself being designated as a local, possibly a local historic place. From reading through it, it already appears that Ramsey County has designated it as a local historic place. So I think this would be a sort of a belt and suspenders approach. If they wanted to do anything to the site, Ramsey County's Historic Society would have to look through it anyway. So it's some of the information was really interesting, and the form itself is very informative to what Commissioner Koski was just saying. That form kind of walks through the checklist of what is it, how it's significant, where does it fall in. So I think if we're going to take anything from the cemetery format that we put together, we could apply that to any one of these other properties.
Okay, Pete?
Yeah, the good thing about that project is most of the work was already done. I know how hard it is to get a locally designated property going, and we're supposed to do one a year, so that's why. And the beauty about it, there's already done a context study of the whole thing by, who was it? Vogel. Vogel did a context study. So if you had never read the context study, it's really good. I would still keep it open to make it a locally designated, while it might be county recognized. I don't know if it's city recognized, unless there's something I missed. So I would say it's still worth the effort to make it locally designated, so it's on our list, other than leaving it up to the county, which we can, but
I had talked to our building official to see if that would make sense, and our building official was under the impression that if it's already designated by the county, the local designation, which we don't have a local designation
Yeah.
yet, the local designation would be pretty redundant.
okay. Well, it would check that task off our list that we always seem to fail to do, so that's why I thought it was a good idea. We put a lot of work into it to get to where we got, with meetings with the county and all the paperwork involved. So it was pretty much a done deal, other than we had our part done. It was the county that had to sign off on it. So the city doesn't have to put any more effort into it. So,
List of people who died there too.
so I mean, I don't know, just considering all the work we've done, we can actually say we did something. I know that's been a complaint over the years, so I'd like to keep it open. I wouldn't, I mean, if it happens, it happens, but there's a lot of hours put into trying to do that, and then the pandemic kind of got in the way, so.
Bob?
Yeah,
The
Richard.
other thing is, on this commission, Pete, you were there, we kind of talked about this, but everybody kind of grouped the national registry with our local, and I says, no, there's actually two, the local designation and the national. Once we get it on the local, then with work or longer work hours, what have you, you could almost get it to go to national. But you got to get it local first.
Well, and the cemetery itself isn't on the National Register listing for the barn. It's
Yep.
not included at all. And it could be. I don't think it really does anything for the cemetery. It's already protected under the Minnesota Private Cemeteries Act, so nothing can happen to it anyway. So as far as protection goes, adding to the National Register wouldn't be helpful, but it would help for the overall information of the site. I mean, clearly, it's a cemetery, so I hope it holds integrity at
Well,
this
you know
point.
how this even came up? They wanted to move the cemetery.
Right, and
Yes,
so,
because does anybody know where the official cemetery is now? The Rice-Dale Cemetery on County Road B, just to the west of Cub Foods. You go there, it's a kind of a sad-looking cemetery, but that's where they were going to move all the bodies. So that's why we did all we did, because while it's protected, doesn't say they can't move it. So,
Then
Pete, give us-
getting it on the National Register listing would definitely be
Yeah, Pete,
more
give us
protective than local
Yeah.
designation, but yeah, starting
that
local
site
helps.
again. Where is it?
Rice-Dale Cemetery, if you go west on County Road B, it's just to your left. It's easy to miss. It's just, there's only a few tombstones in there. That's where they bury people now, or at least they did, that couldn't afford burial.
It's when you go County Road B and you go down, and B starts to go
Start to
up
go
a little
down, yeah.
bit.
Between the railroad tracks and Cub, or where?
No, far west.
It's
West of
It's like a block
Rice
to the
Drive.
east, a block to the west of Rice, yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Before you
Yeah,
get to Western.
I suppose Google could be our friend, I suppose, if that's where Joe's
Okay.
staff's gonna do.
That house that burned down.
It's close to there, yes, yes. Yep, yep,
Okay.
yeah. But it's a good point, yeah, I don't know. Who knows what the county's plan is for the property? I wouldn't even say the barn is safe forever, so always keep an open eye on that property, because a lot of things have happened over the years there, so.
So Pete, you might know, was that barn connected with the cemetery?
Not with the register. The barn's by itself. Technically speaking, even the milk house isn't part of the National Register. That's the appendage on it.
And how old is that barn?
1918?
Really?
I think it's 1918.
Well,
I
that was
think.
before the cemetery then.
No, cemetery is older. It's 19th century. It's 18, my years are,
I think it was like,
1890s
I could
maybe?
share, I could
Yeah.
share so
Yeah.
everybody has the background. I'm happy to share that with the thing.
The Vogel report is very good. So if we can dig that up, commissioners should at least have that emailed to them so they can read it, because it's pretty thorough, which is kind of a good template if we ever do those kind of studies. It's kind of what they're looking for, you
You
know.
know, that house that was up there, they moved that down on.
Oh, the
Canard.
superintendent's house,
Yeah.
yeah. So, hey, yep, yeah.
okay, that's good. Anything else? Anyone want to mention about the Poor Farm Cemetery? Okay. We'll move on to signage. Joe?
Yeah, we could do signage, and then we could kind of circle back to report. So I did connect via our community development director, with the property manager for all Ramsey County properties on the signage, and they were going through basically all of their signage throughout the county to see what was in good repair, what was in disrepair, and what needed to be fixed. And they're evaluating. Hopefully, they're able to get out there and see what disrepair it's in and fix it. So they're aware of it. They're looking through their inventory, and as soon as they know more about what their plan forward is going to be, they do have a plan though to replace signage throughout the
okay.
county. We don't know what timeline, but that's it. As far as back to item D3, the annual SHPO report, we're required as a designated local government to submit a report about our activity over the course of the last calendar year to the State Historic Preservation Office. The report template was in your packet. If anyone has anything to add, anything they want to change, let me know. And then what we could do is, right now, it's in sort of a Word format. Every year we go and I work with our graphic designer to put it in a prettier format. But, I wanted to make sure that we kind of ironed everything out before we went through the graphic design process in case there were any major changes. So it basically outlines what we've done, who's on the commission, where we are currently with property evaluation. This year, we actively recruited someone from a diverse community. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find somebody. Commissioners, and I'm going to take out Commissioner Koski, but Commissioner Hughes and Gaspar attended the Preserve Minnesota Conference, property preservations. We consulted our history. We assessed potential sites. which is kind of the minimum bar we have to meet. Obviously, we want to be able to designate if we can, but the minimum bar is to take some time and look at it. As we know, this is sort of an ongoing project. We began to document all homes that are at least 100 years old. We've created a database that is going to be able to transfer into a software program. I did check. We use Bolton and Mink for our mapping system. So Bolton and Mink, we have some time. We have their general contract. They give us X amount of hours a year, but it sounds like we'll be able to get something. They can do some kind of mapping for us to meet some of the goals Commissioner Koski had talked about. 106 reviews is a big piece of what we do. We have the Legacy Funeral Home, which came through earlier in the year. We have Trunk Highway 5 Improvement Project that we took a look at, the Metro Stormwater Management. Some of these are minor projects that didn't have a whole lot of historic significance in the corridor. And then potential G-Line, which is coming down the pike right now. We were notified, the G-Line is the new bus rapid transit that is going to happen through Rice Street. And so there are two pieces of historic value on the Rice Street. One of them is the old tavern, and then the other one is a dairy farm. I think Schmidt's Dairy is over there. That process has just started, so we haven't gotten any real information on that yet. They're in their environmental stages now. So that's where we are. We're in the process now of updating our 3-year strategic plan, which we just talked about. It includes creating an interactive website documenting key dates. This is not on the plan, but this is a holdover from last year, creating an oral history from residents, especially those of diverse backgrounds. And then the last one is creating the Maplewood historical timeline, depending on what that looks like. And then, as we know, the National Historic Places is the Ramsey County Poor Farm Barn. The Maplewood Heritage Local Designated Landmarks are the Burntrip Heritage Farm. And then we also have the Gladstone Savannah. And then, again, this is not an official thing, but we have more than 130 homes identified as 100 years. So that's some of the significance of what we did this year. So if I'm in agreement on that one to accept the report, I will ask for a motion to accept the annual report unless anyone has any amendments. And this way we can put it through and file it.
Just for FYI, the Dean's Tavern, that's actually older than the North St. Paul one that they brag about, the oldest one. Dean's it's now McCarran's Tavern.
Yeah.
That's older than the one in North St. Paul.
And Dean's is in our 60 stories, so we have some background for that as well.
Okay, is there a motion to accept that report?
I'll make the motion to accept the report.
Okay, is it? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Thank you, Joe.
I'm sorry, I missed who made the motion?
Richard made a motion and David Hughes seconded.
And then what will happen is, like I said, once we lay it out, that'll be submitted to the SHPO office, and we'll have met our goal that year to maintain our license.
That's great. That's great.
I'll skip down to 5, new member recruitment. As I was saying before, October 28th, our council workshop will hear from potential commissioners. We know that there are 2 people who identified that they had interest in joining this commission. So what will happen is at the workshop, they'll go through a list of questions about sort of what their background is, what their experience is, why they want to be on the commission, and then the council will vote. And then based upon that vote, hopefully for the next meeting, we will have a new commissioner. And then we'll move through, if you want to go through D6, the meeting schedule.
Yes.
I had taken Commissioner Boulet's motion, which was, I believe, a 5-to-1 motion. I had talked to the city manager, and the city manager says as long as we are progressing toward outcomes, he is fine, not fine, he approves of us going every other month. So what I would suggest is, our next, if we did every other month, our next would be December. So I would say let's restart in January and do January, March, May, July, September, November as the meeting schedule. And then with that, I would ask, I don't know if it's a problem with anyone else's schedule, it's fine, but can we move this meeting to 6 instead of 7? I don't know if people have,
What time?
right now we meet at 7, but would it be a problem for anybody to meet at 6?
Okay. Here's the deal, there's something in the city code that says between this hour and this hour has to be a lunch hour or lunch.
Okay, I
food.
consulted with, Andrea Sint, our city clerk. There is nothing in the bylaws of this particular commission that says we have to meet at a certain time. I know on Monday nights, because there's back-to-back planning commission meeting and CDRB meeting, they have one meeting at 6, the next meeting at 7. So again, if it's a major inconvenience, we could keep it at 7, but it'd be nice to be done at 6. Or get it started at 6.
I'm fine at 6.
Do we need an official motion? Oh, yeah, sorry.
I can try to squeeze it, but I might be late occasionally.
Gotcha, okay, so you want to say, would 6:30 work, or we keep it at 7?
7 works best for
Okay,
me.
let's keep it at 7.
But I can be flexible if I have to.
No worries, we'll keep it at 7. All right, that's one of those ones I wanted it to be unanimous. Okay. That's fine. All right, so that puts us at, I'm going to pull it up for you on the screen, but Commissioner Boulay wants to talk to a little bit about a Maplewood entry into the Green Book. And if you want to, for folks who might not know, a little background of what the Green Book
Yep,
actually is.
Sure. So what the people see, are they seeing what you're showing on the screen, Stamp?
No, he's playing it all.
I mean, that's, oh, okay, so, I was at the National Convention for Geographic Names Authorities, and we had a great topic on maps that aren't really maps. So like, not everything's a map, I guess, is kind of the gist of it. And one of it, which it was called the Green Book. And I heard of the Green Book because I vaguely knew of the movie that came out in 2018. And what the Green Book is because of Jim Crow laws in the South, and many cities had sunset laws where blacks had to be out of the city by dark. There's lots of cities, you can look that up too if you Google it. Most states had some kind of restrictive official or unofficial rules. So black people were wanting to go out and be safe, and so they bought cars. This is back in the 30s. And what they were looking for is what would be a place they can go to that would be safe, that would be welcoming and accept them. So there was a mailman in New York City named Victor Hugo Green. He came up with a novel idea of a guidebook for the African American road trippers. And a lot of this is gleaned from the Library of Congress. You can Google Library of Congress. You can read all the Green Books from 1936 right through 1967. First it was more New York based, and then he expanded it to the whole country, even took ads for places to appear in the book. So what's in the book is basically state by state with motels and restaurants that were safe places to go to. And a lot of these are gone. One that still exists today in St. Paul is the Lexington Restaurant. So that was in the Green Book. So I was surprised to find out there was a Maplewood location in the Green Book, Seracs Motel, which was located right by McKnight and I guess Old Hudson Road or I-94 12. And it was in the Green Book from about, I think wherever I say it in there, 57 to the 60s. It was built in 1946. Mr. and Mrs. Gus Serac. It was like a Gopher Stay Motel, and then put their name on it, Serac's Motel. And you scroll down there a little bit, you can see where it was. It's literally, today where you see Building 220, the big tall building in 3M, if you have your 60 Stories book, there's a wonderful picture on page 103 where you can see the skeleton of the big 3M building with Serac's Motel right in the front of it. So, of course, 3M eventually took over the site, And you can't see it today, and legend has it some of the evergreen trees were still left behind. And I looked at the site. There are evergreen trees, but I would have no idea how old they are. So they may or may not be from the motel. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There wasn't a lot of properties in the area in this book. In some years, it was pretty much the Serac Motel, and that's about it for anything east of Minneapolis. So in the state. So I found it very interesting, and you could look. I encourage people to look the book up, read about it a bit. There's a guide in the front, and you can look around in various states and cities, and even locally here in the Twin Cities, see if there's any places still in existence. So kind of an interesting little tidbit of history, I guess. If anybody's got any questions, always answer questions.
So Pete, that 57 photo,
Yes.
that was right before they went out of business, or what happened there?
Well, they were there until the mid '60s. They started building 3M, but the motel was still there. But by 1969, it was gone.
When was that 3M building put up?
The 220 building, 1960. So 57 to 60 was a big change in that area, for sure.
Yeah.
And that picture, the 1957, I think it's a University of Minnesota photograph, and I have the 1969 photo on the right.
Is that Serac the same as the liquor store over there?
Same family, I believe, yes. I'm trying to contact the family.
Yeah, same family,
Yep.
but they sold their liquor store.
Oh, they did? Okay, see, I didn't even know that. Still has their name on it, right?
don't
I think
know
so.
if it does. Yeah,
Last
probably
time I
does.
was by, it
So,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was kind of an interesting little, I didn't realize we had a connection there. And of course, in the book, it says St. Paul, because everything in Maplewood is in St. Paul, right? So, yeah, it threw me for a minute, then I was like, wait a minute, that's in Maplewood, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's
handy.
interesting. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, there you go. The Green Book. Joe, did you have anything else there?
Not on the Green Book, but we do have a Maplewood Area Historical Society update, and since Commissioner Hughes is their newly appointed board member, I will invite him up to give us an update on what they're up to over there.
He could be front center.
It's been like, what, a year since we had a guest?
Yeah.
Does this thing work?
Yes.
All right, just a couple things. Can you hear me? Okay. This Saturday from 10 to 4 is the last of the Art at the Barn fairs. If you're interested in going, there's going to be over 100 vendors. Parking is between Kohl's and Macy's. There's a shuttle there. You get picked up at door 4, be dropped at the barn, and then returned afterwards. And I won't even attempt to pronounce this Nicolastag, December 7th.
St. Nicholas Tog.
Oh, you know. You
Yeah,
must-
well, they have it every. I wouldn't have known looking at it, but I know because they've
I
had
know,
it before.
well, when you read it, it doesn't look like that. It's
St.
like-
Nicholas
It's like
Tag.
reading a German word or something. Anyway, that'll be December 7th from 11 to 4, and information on that will be available at the museum website. And this year, the museum is on track to serve over 17,000 visitors, which is an amazing number when you consider that White Bear Lake serves about 2,500 people a year at their site. So we are way ahead, right now, the second largest museum in the county. Any questions?
One question.
Yes.
I saw something on Facebook. There was an incident there. I don't know what happened. But they didn't,
I will tell you
I
that
don't want to broadcast.
we are
it.
separate entities. That's a nonprofit, and I'm not going to discuss events that happen there. I haven't been fully filled in on it, but we're separate
Because
entities.
they said it was something, it affected the city too, so.
You should,
I'm not
you
good.
should know your name's on there too. They put it, all the board members.
Oh, I
names
know,
are
I
listed.
know, I know parts about it, but it's not something that I'm going to talk about here. This is kind of how we had the last free-for-all was we were mixing business, and they are separate entities. That's a nonprofit. This is the city. If you want to look at the police log, you'll know that the police were there. But it was not a reflection on the organization whatsoever at all.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to return to my commission seat.
I didn't want him to answer it really here.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Last point is demo permits.
So we have one, we actually had three demo permits, but two are insignificant. I shouldn't say insignificant, but one was for the Legacy Funeral Home, which we already discussed. I will let you know that they've broken ground to it's a new name now, but it's basically it's for Gladstone Village Phase 1 is what's there, but it has a new name now, and I forget the name. But they did bring in a shaman who did sort of do the ceremonial clearing of the spirits on that building before they did the demo and started new construction. The second one was a house that was built, or a shed that was built on top of a septic tank, and we had some issues with the city, and we came to an agreement that they would remove the shed that was on the septic tank. And then the last one that is of some significance is 3M Campus, which is what's in front of you. Building 209 applied for a demo permit, which was issued on August 9th, 2004, to Veet and Company Construction. As you can see, this building that's going to be demolished is along McKnight Road and Innovation Boulevard. That's the front of the building, angling. Right here is sort of a ground shot view of the building. It's a side view, you can tell, and then here's a rear view looking toward McKnight Road. I believe this building might have already been partly demolished if you've driven past that area. So that's we captured some of the Google images now, so we have something on our file.
Very good. Thanks, Joe.
Mr.
So
Chair.
that's not the building Scotch tape was invented in?
I don't know what that building is. Go ahead.
What's the year of construction of this one?
I don't have the year of construction. I could look into it. I would say, looking at it, it's probably 50s or 60s, right? Probably mid-50s, early 60s.
Yeah, it looks one of the older ones for sure.
Yeah.
What I always ask whenever these things come up is...
Well, it can't be the 50s, because when was 3M built, most of it?
57 or?
57, so yeah,
right,
late 50s.
Because it was still a township when they got the land, so... What I always ask is if, and it's probably, might be too late, if they ever did a, what do you call it, a cornerstone or anything like that, did they have anything like a time capsule or anything?
Gotcha.
Always keep an eye out. I don't know, I haven't seen this property, so I don't know, but, yeah, sometimes they turn up in the weirdest places, so it's always if there's a year on a building, sometimes there's something behind it, so.
Well, and you mentioned a good thing that, or somebody did, about the Scotch tape. When was that founded? That had to
I
have
don't
been
know.
61.
Was that 61 Scotch tape?
Yeah, so it might have been in this
I don't
building.
know.
Yeah,
3M probably knows, though.
well,
Do you know what they're going to put in place of it?
I think 3M's in the process of trying to kind of clear through a lot of the older buildings and figure out what's next.
I suppose. The parking lot's not very full at 3M.
Well, yeah, they had, I believe at one point, especially when we were talking about building the Gold Line, they had about 14,000 vehicles in the parking lot on a
Okay.
daily basis. Then after the pandemic, it dropped to about 7,000.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
I don't know what it is currently, but in those couple of years post-pandemic, it was about 7.
Okay.
okay, we do not have visitor presentations, or, no? You just had. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you were the visitor.
We had moved, and I don't know if we want to keep doing it this way. Commissioner Curry had requested at the last meeting, made a motion which was approved that we move the Maplewood Area Historical Society update from visitor presentations to new business. We could keep it that way, we can move it. not a huge deal.
The reason being, that way if you get any citizens in, they can talk and the society will have their own little spot. Not to put them on the spot, but
So do you want to look at me here or up there?
right.
Can I ask a question, Joe? So if we're going to return to meetings every other month, is there an opportunity that our council member is going to, again, magically appear at our meetings?
I will make a request. I know she does watch us via she watches us on the Channel 16, and she also will either Channel 16 or on the VOD. I would imagine it's the VOD because it's easier to watch them up the phone or a device. So I can check in with her.
Are we the only commission that doesn't have a commissioner sitting in on their meetings?
Most commissions, it's hit or miss.
Okay.
I honestly, for the most part, I don't sit on other commissions. Sometimes if there's a big agenda item, I'll sit in on planning or I'll watch it from home.
Okay. I just don't want us to appear to be second-class citizens because we don't
I
have
honestly don't
what the
think
other
that-
commissions have.
Historically, there were never commissioners.
We're always historically last.
Yeah, but they weren't.
But at least we make a
that-
quorum.
That was added maybe 5 years or 10 years ago, but historically, it wasn't, commissioners weren't, or
Council people.
council members.
Council members, that's part of their responsibility, though, is they're assigned to these. And
Yeah, but they-
feedback would be nice once in a while to know that, they care, we're accomplishing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
I know, isn't access an issue? Could you extend the offer if it moves to 6 PM, if that's easier for her to attend?
I don't know if that would change one way or the other. Access is, I don't know if timing would work. I don't know how, I honestly don't know. I'd have to ask.
Yeah, I'd say if 6 PM works better for her, I can make that work.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I think, isn't it in January, once they seat the new council, the council will pick what council member will take what commission?
Yes, usually at the beginning of each year, they will assign council people to sit on a variety of, not only commissions internally, but the not Ramsey Washington, Watershed District, and other districts that we govern. There's about 10 or 15 that we have affiliations with. One of the biggest ones is St. Paul Regional Water Service.
Oh, we appointed you to be our commissioner.
No, I was the liaison on the 106 project. I wasn't I'm not, it needs to be a council member to sit on their board.
No, but what I'm saying is, we set you for our representative to that.
And Commissioner Carey, he was also, or
But
I'm
we
sorry,
didn't
Commissioner
get any
Gasper.
reports back and how it's going.
I
More
have
about
been
that
giving you
today.
reports.
He
Every
did.
time I get something from Mr. Mikolas, I forward it
Yes,
along.
he did mention it. Okay, anything further for the information on the Preservation Commission? Anyone have anything to add?
Oh, we still have the unfinished business from me.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
So the update, Joe alluded to it earlier, but he did check with the city, and it sounds like they do have capacity and ability to put an interactive mapping portal on the website, which is really nice and good to have it confirmed. So they're basically ready whenever we send them the data package. So I have a pretty good comprehensive package ready. I've been waiting on adding in anything additional that Commissioner Hughes has pulled together, but for the purpose of the city website, it's going to end up being a much parsed down map, because if we have like 200 structures in the inventory, that's a bit overwhelming. That's more for management and inventory purposes. For the interactive website, like Hughes made a good point before, we can't overwhelm with too much information. We want to highlight key points. So I think I'm going to come up with a list of suggestions of key highlights to put onto that interactive map, especially things that we have good, interesting documentation for. So when they click on it, they've got like good images and pictures and stuff to interact with. And I think this list is a good place to start with that, if not the list to go with as much as possible. And if there's anything interesting, I think I'm going to add something from 60 Stories. I know that Joe has noted a few things, because then we can put the 60 Stories, well, unless there's a copyright problem. I don't know if we can actually put the 60 Stories on the website, like sections of it, but.
Well, you had individual, so it's a city property, but you had individual authors, so I don't know about the copyright. But I think we're okay, because it's
Okay.
already on the website. just as
Oh,
long as
that's
we-
true. Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
realized maybe I can't just put chapters up on the website.
I know
but-
we do sell, I mean, we sell, not we, but the Maplewood Area Historical Society does sell copies of that book, but I think if you pull an excerpt
Yeah,
or
okay.
link to the page, I think you're fine there.
Okay, maybe we can double check before I just start doing that. But I do want to highlight properties on this list, properties in 60 Stories that may not be in the list. And then actually, Boulez gave me the idea that we should probably also include non-extant things, structures or sites, or even just interesting, the slag pit. I don't know, interesting it is to most people. But I can create points for non-extant things too, to highlight stuff that we can't see every day. So we can have a layer that shows here are the buildings that you can drive by currently, that you can take a look at, here's some history on them. And then here are areas that you can't see these things anymore, but they're a significant part of the history, or interesting tidbits, like the Green Book tidbit.
Yeah, you can add that to it if you want it.
Yeah, so I think it'd be good. I can pull together a list from these materials in 60 Stories of suggestions for what can go on the public web map and run it by this commission in the next meeting. And then also, I don't have a lot of ideas for non-extant things to add to that list, the motel being one. But if there are other ideas other commissioners have for places that have since been demolished or disappeared that we should be highlighting, I'm open to suggestions if you just.
Believe in the historical context study, they actually
Yeah, they do have a
list
list.
a couple that aren't, places that are no longer here. That was always my favorite. PBS in Philadelphia. Lost structures or lost history.
Yeah, there's
is
some on
there.
here, and if there's some that are not on the list that any commissioners know of that they think would be good to include, or especially if we want to add photographs or articles or something of interest, if you have documentation for any of the structures in this lost structures list, or things that you know of that are not on the list, I think that'd be really great to add.
I'll have another one in January.
There you go.
That's my new thing, is I'm going to try to have one a meeting, so.
That would be
You'll see.
helpful. I think because we have something to go with now, so we can get something going, we could start with just the data package for the current extant structures that are still standing and get that rolling, kind of see how that works. It sounds like Bolton and Mink will be doing that, get that live, and then we can be working on building the non-extant list, because that can take some time to pull together a good one and getting all the documentation prepared to go online. So we can start with the actionable steps that we have and then start planning for possibly a second layer to add. So that's the update.
Very good. Thanks, Laura. Okay, now, is there anything further? Okay, so Joe, our next meeting would be January?
Yeah, January, let me take a look at the exact date there. Make sure I'm giving you the right date. So it'll be January 9th, yeah.
Time to be determined?
I would say it's 7
Okay.
o'clock, and
We should almost make a fallback day of.
Say,
weather's
Joe,
inclement.
can I ask a question, or are we still on? On our dates of expiration, it looks like Bob expired, so I think you might have the wrong.
yeah, I'll double check his.
'cause
I know
He's
Bob
right
was-
there, he's not expired.
Bob was renewed in April, so that might be an old number. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Dave.
Good catch.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and then, Dave, I think it'd be good if you suggested dates when you make your report so that the city can know about it. I don't know if, the dates at the farm.
So these are the last two events of this year.
Okay,
So we'd be carrying into probably March.
Okay, good.
February,
Okay,
March.
good.
The city too, usually, I usually get a list from folks at the farm.
Yep.
And if you look at the back of Maplewood Living, we include their events in Maplewood Living.
Yep.
So if you look at the schedule of events, it's usually there.
Yep.
We're actually going to spend quite a bit of the winter doing some work, pulling up some carpet, redoing some floors, doing some painting. It needs some touch-up.
Okay, anything further? Anyone?
I'll move a motion to
Adjourn.
close, adjourn.
I second that.